Hello, welcome to Charting Change in Legal. I'm Caroline Hill, the editor-in-chief of Legal IT Insider, and I'm joined by my excellent co-host.
Ari Kaplan, an analyst that covers the legal industry, and I'm looking forward to this discussion today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, me too. We haven't spoken for a while. Life's been busy. Lots of travel, lots
Lots
of
of travel. The New York Mets are in the playoffs. It's super distracting and late nights, but wonderful. And so I understand you've just returned from ClioCON. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I have. It was in Austin, Texas, and it's the first time I've ever been to ClioCon. I was with Bob Ambrogi and the whole sort of Friday legal tech panel crew. We were there too. We did a panel on stage at the conference talking about we took sort of positions on various things around Gen AI as to whether it will get rid of the billable hour. We had a bit of a debate on stage, which was really fun. And I mean, I'll come back to that, but I was really impressed with the whole vibe of the conference, if that's not too weird a thing to say. So I wrote a piece about it afterwards, talking about how if I took anything away, it's around culture, because they seem like such a really positive, supportive company. And I know that when you're at a conference, you see what they want you to see, but I really get the impression that culture matters, and the positivity and the energy and all of that stuff was really infectious. So I had such a great time.
I have always held, I have to say, Jack Newton in high regard. In 2011, I spoke at the Canadian Bar and had a new book that had just come out and suggested that we do a meetup or something. And Jack and his colleague George, we met up somewhere and had some attendees from the event come. And, his company was very new and I was pretty new to the space and he couldn't have been more supportive and kind. So I love to hear these stories about how successful Cleo's been, how great he's doing. And it's been a lot of fun for me. I wasn't there, but I'm so excited to hear that it was
Yeah.
fun. I was actually at Relativity Fest the week before, which was, I feel like had a very I would describe it in a very similar way, although two totally different kinds of companies serving different spaces, but
Yeah.
also energized, lots of unique conversations about very specific issues. What was your big takeaway from ClioCon?
I mean, I think that culture really, one of them was that culture really matters, and that's always been the case. But so I was saying, practice what you preach, or we talk about putting culture before technology, and I think Clio really does live that. They've had a lot of investment. They did famously now did that $900 million raise, but that is given that they were valued at 3 billion. That is a minority investment. I think and they've got lots of different investors, and I think that's really important because they retain control over the way that the company operates and the long-term growth of the company. That's the priority. And I think that it's really, I'm going to hopefully do a talk soon on private equity and investment, and you know what you want the company that you are working with to look like. And I do think that's quite a key point. And I think that and we had some fun existential question, like conversations, like for example, and we've talked about the billable hour for years, and we had a big debate. There was a lot of Jack's put up a picture of the gravestone saying the billable hour is dead. They've had this legal trends report out, which suggests that Gen AI is going to really damage the billable hour, because obviously if you're taking 1 hour for something that would have taken 3 hours, all of the association guidelines suggest that you can't charge 3 hours just because you're being, think, oh, I'm being more efficient, so I can still charge. So actually that strongly leans towards using a flat fee. I am not a believer that the billable hour will ever disappear completely, but I do think that people are going to really now have to start thinking about perhaps a hybrid model. And perhaps I mean, we've been talking about this for so many years. You no doubt had this debate for 1,000 years. I'm a cynic. I just think it will never go. It's like a cockroach. But just, yeah, is that what do you think, Hari? Do you think it's going to go?
Many of my conversations are with practitioners or those who are running law firms, and this conversation strikes me as disconnected in some ways, only because I feel like I'm often involved in this sort of debate about the billable hour with people who aren't actually practicing, who aren't charging by the billable hour. And then when you get into actual circumstances of legal work, those people don't really have a good alternative. And they have tried to value work in ways that are different than they historically did. And they end up always coming back to the billable hour. They would measure the value of a project by the number of hours and then call it a flat fee. But it's really just if it took 20 hours, they'd multiply 20 hours by the billable hour and then make that the flat fee and leave some flexibility so that there could be a success rate or something. But at the end of the day, someone's going to pay what the project is worth. And I think that's always been the challenge. So whenever there's this discussion about the billable hour, I just think that the people who are debating and rooting for its demise somehow aren't actually using it as as a metric. And that's really the challenge. I'm not in any way saying it's going to be here forever or that it's dead in a week. I just think that the conversation tends to happen in pockets and those in silos, and that the people who are actually really trying to figure out how to provide maximum value for their clients and provide legal work in a way that is satisfactory to the people who are paying for it, they don't really sense that there's a meaningful alternative. Now, we are in an era all of a sudden where work is being done at a accelerated rate, and so you ethically can't charge for if you're charging by the hour and something takes significantly less time, you can't just manufacture an amount of time. So that may drive, if it affects profitability, that may drive a change, and you'd have to see what the clients who are paying that rate
It
will
will,
think.
right? This is kind of the point. It will. That firms, if they haven't already thought about it, they need to think about it now. They need to think about it because clients will not tolerate you charging, and you're just not allowed to, right? You just can't charge for the 3 hours that it would have taken, and so you're effectively you're being penalized for being more efficient under the billable hour system. But B, it's going to leave a great big gap
Yeah.
if you're not careful. So they really need to think about it now. But I agree with you completely about, the firms struggle, including in-house counsel, who, there's all this stuff about, oh, the clients are demanding change. Well, actually, as we've often said in this podcast and in other conversations, the in-house teams, they come from private practice. And I've heard about law firms who have tried to move away from a billable hour and been told by the client that they want to understand how the time was reached because that's the system that they understand. So this the whole thing about the clients driving change. I don't. I think that they want to understand how they're being billed and the impact of the changes and all of that stuff. I agree with that, but it's kind of a fascinating time, but I think the key point is that you're ahead of it, right? I think that everyone needs to be, if you haven't thought about it now, this is really the time.
Yeah, and I have to say that my experience at Relativity Fest was such that the advancements in technology have occurred at such an accelerated rate over the last year from when I was there last year, and they were introducing AI tools, and now we're talking about, the implementation and the usage and the practicality of it. It does beg the question of when a machine can do the work of a number of individuals, and you have to come up with some metric of what that looks like. I agree. I think that there will be conversations, but I think this decision will be decided by the people who are charging for the work and paying for the work, and not necessarily people who are interested in the space. And I think it can't always be just a fun conversation and a debate amongst people whose livelihoods are not affected necessarily by the billable hour. I think that you're really going to have to see this, and it'll have to be incorporated into the billing structure, and there will need to be a level of trust and transparency that people can all understand.
Yeah, no, definitely. We it was certainly fun doing this panel. Did you, what was there any sort of key takeaways from relativity in terms of the topics of discussion?
There were, and I think that your point about culture is also interesting. I think that the organizations that hold these successful events, particularly like Clio or like Relativity, that are really large and global, I think they have built a certain, unique culture among their customers, among their employees, and where it's both fun and everyone kind of gathers. So I think that there was a lot of that. Certainly I always enjoy the keynotes and I always enjoy the lessons and also the conversations that I have with people. I was lucky there because I spoke about the annual general counsel report that I do with Relativity and with FTI. I spoke about a new report that I have coming out with Opus 2, just sort of connecting case management and e-discovery, and also a report about building e-discovery teams that I did with ACEDs. So it sort of gives me a chance to wear a different hat at that event, just because I wear like a really, I feel like a strong e-discovery and litigation support hat that is sort of just, one of the hats that I wear. So I really enjoyed it, and I really love learning from the other people that I get to work with. So I think that
What were the,
there's a lot on the horizon.
was there anything like, in terms of key takeaways, sort of the substantive takeaways, was there any sort of anything key learning or,
Yeah, I would
anything?
say one key takeaway is that people are trying to figure out how they can use technology that they know and trust for activities that they hadn't historically used that technology. So, for example, taking e-discovery technology and using it for case management or using it for contract review or using it for some other element and trying to maximize the value of a particular technology that they're, investing in. Yeah.
That's always been such a curiosity to me, the fact that you've got these clear lines, like so you've got e-discovery and then you've got contract review, and they're very much the same sort of, in terms of the stuff they're doing, it's different. The types of work that you're applying it to are different. So you've got litigation, then you've got deals, M&A. But actually, like Luminance is one of the companies that I think has crossed both sides of the coin. When they sort of started doing contract review, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, you're also seeing a lot of this crossover. You're seeing uh, no code companies now offering contract AI. And that is just another example of smart leaders with good technology expanding of the use case. And I think that anything that you can provide your users that has a great interface, that's simplified, that actually just accomplishes very discrete tasks that they can immediately appreciate and get value from
Yeah.
is positive. And so you're starting to see more organizations talk about that. And I think that has, it sort of just pushes the industry forward, right? It elevates our ability to do more substantive work and less rote kind of tasks that just take a lot of time and don't provide a lot of value.
And also the e-discovery crew are used to new technology, so we've talked before about how I've actually had people write for me now, about the parallels between when technology assisted review was first becoming, well, all of the progress around, should we be using it and are we allowed to use it and what if it's wrong, and then all the court cases, and they've learned so much from that, and actually I think that they're often just one step ahead. So actually I think it's kind of the perfect arena to be having these sorts of conversations at this sort of time.
Yeah, and also the difference there is that you couldn't necessarily just use technology assisted review or predictive coding for a letter or something. It was you needed expertise and you needed a specific use case. Whereas with generative AI, anybody can use it for many different things that they work on every day. And so it's becoming harder, frankly, to say, oh, it doesn't work here, it doesn't work here, it doesn't work here, because it clearly works in certain places. The question is, will it work the way we need it to? Is it defensible? Do we have the right sort of parameters in place for this to make sense for whatever high value project we're working on. But there, there's a lot of rapid experimentation going on because people are trying to figure out, we know this could work. We're not exactly sure where that fits. What do we do? And there was a lot of discussion about that. And I like those discussions because they're less theoretical than the billable hour, just to go full circle, right? There, you can say, well, can we use this to review this document? Well, I guess we can. And then, like, what's the percentage of time it would be correct? And you could iterate and make it better and find a way that it would be successful. So lots of conversations, lots of hands-on discussions.
Yeah, that's very cool. They are one of the more interesting developments, perhaps in the last few weeks, has also been perhaps is it theoretical? You're gonna like it, all right? So there's been talk around benchmarking. It's not. Perhaps it's the opposite of theoretical. So LITIG, which is the UK Legal Innovators Group, led by John Krask, who's head of innovation and knowledge. He's launched a benchmarking initiative for Gen AI, which is quite interesting. And in the last few days, he's published a summary of, they had a workshop in August, which I actually couldn't be at because I was on holiday, even though Legal IT Insider is supporting the venture. But and they've come up with a few initial points around sort of expectations as users, which I thought was
Hmm.
quite helpful. And then there's a meeting on the 24th of October, which is virtual. So if anybody out there is interested in joining that, it's on my site, legaltechnology.com, under Gen AI Benchmarking Initiative. It'd be great to have as many people along as possible just to talk about, we're talking about how to measure the output of Gen AI tools so that there's comparison, so you're able to compare. It's almost like comparing apples with apples because currently there's it's like a bit like the Wild West out there. So that's going to be really interesting to sort of see what that second conversation is like.
Well, the idea of benchmarking is great. It only helps to support everyone in the same way. And it also gives people ideas. Not everyone has access to the same resources, the same finances. And so if they see that their peer is somehow able to use generative AI for a particular task, they may then try to introduce it at their organization to at least be on a certain level together. And I think that it helps to meet expectations. I think that's great. I'm so happy that you're hearing that. I'm looking forward to hearing what the findings are going to be like.
Yeah, me too. Well, I think we can do you want me to close off? Is there anything else, Ari, that
Should we
you
close off? Can we close off the show today?
Can we close the show?
Yeah.
Can I say one thing, just real
Yeah, of
quick?
course. Sure.
So I've got my own event coming up at
Mhm.
the end of October. If anybody hasn't signed up but wants to, it's on the 29th and 30th of October. It's about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's 2 days this year. So I've got a few more grey hairs. We talking about the first day is talking about inclusivity, creating an inclusive workplace. I've got some great people involved with workshops through the day. It's going to be really brilliant. And it's just the website is thesagap.co.uk. And then the second day, teaching or coaching women to speak in public and convey their message, get their voice heard above the noise. So that's going to be so much fun. So if you're going to be anywhere near the UK, because it is in person, it's thesagap.co.uk. So make sure you sign up.
How will it be different from the first one? I know the first one was very successful.
Yeah, thanks. It's talking about there'll be overlaps, and I think for people who came last year, that's a big question that they had. And but so they there'll be it's talking about it's a bit more of an advanced session, although for people that haven't been before, it'd be absolutely fine. But it's talking about the first one was more just how do you talk about anything and just get up on stage. This is taking a business idea, how you further it's perhaps more business focused. So how do you take an idea, business idea, and be more strategic in the way that you communicate. So I think it's perhaps a bit of an evolution, but anybody who hasn't been before will be perfectly fine. But it is a case of just practice makes perfect as well. That there were lots of people last year who didn't get up on stage, and it's about building that confidence continuously. So as you know, because you do a ton of public speaking stuff, the more you do it, the more confident you get, right? So it's just a case of keep practicing, finding opportunities to put yourself out of your comfort zone, And then eventually we're going to have everybody, hopefully, at conferences and all sorts of venues, all sorts of opportunities.
Can I just ask, are there any sort of overall tips you share with people about getting more comfortable in public speaking?
Yeah, so I find it helpful to really connect with what you're talking about. I mean, obviously there are times when you just have to get up, right? But I think in anything that you're saying, just think about what it is you're saying. You know, there's a temptation, I think, when people who are nervous get up on stage, they just want to deliver it. And they're rushing and but just think about what it is you're saying, you know, connect with the message, think about it not just in terms of the words, but you know, what am I trying to achieve? What's my objective?
Mm.
And you know, and also breathing. Like in one of the first times I had to talk in public, which was many years ago, I had real butterflies in my stomach, and somebody taught me this real simple technique, which is breathing into your stomach so it fills it up like a ball, which really quietens those nerves. And there's all sorts of things that we teach people at the Say Gap, and we'll do again this year, I expect, about posture. So really ground yourself. Think about your when you're speaking, it's not just about your voice, it's about your whole body position, you know, like in terms of open shoulders back, open up your chest, you know, keep your feet grounded. Um, and yeah, there's lots of physical things that I think you can do to help you feel confident, to help get rid of those butterflies. And then just, you know, practice. I think practice really is the only thing that can take you from being, you know, really nervous beginner to standing up there and delivering a very confident 20-minute speech. Just keep doing it. Is
I
that
remember
what
when
you?
yeah,
Yeah.
when my children were little, they're now college students, but when they were little, I would come down early to my office and stare out this picture window and deliver a presentation. And I remember once both of them came down, one with like a bunny and the other with a blanket or something, and they sat on the couch that was in my office and they just watched me. And then I paused to ask the audience if anybody had any questions because I was like really going through the session. And my son like just raised his hand, just had a very, very important question. And I called on him and he's like, "Who are you talking to?" And we had this whole conversation. But I will say that like I just want to share with your audience, and I think it's amazing the work that you're doing. But the one of the things that I have found is whenever I stand up, I always smile. Makes me feel
Yeah,
better. It's like better to smile than to look nervous, whether you're nervous or not. And everyone is always nervous. I think people should know that. And then I always ask a question. And I always ask questions. It's immediate engagement with the audience. And I like that because I don't ask them to actually call out an answer, but I'll ask for a show of hands. And that sort of physical activity somehow gets the blood flowing. And then I
interesting.
tell a story. And I have a very scripted sort of style. Like I ask a question, I smile, tell a story, ask a question, tell a story. That story usually puts me at ease. There's no perfect way to tell that story. So whatever the story is, I just feel like it then gets me into a groove. And then I'm like, boom, let's do this, people. And I just think that anything that gets people comfortable and moving and smiling will, lead to a good result. So I
I
look
love
forward to
that.
hearing. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that, and that is so exactly, you know, that's perfect. The way I describe it is like dropping something in a pool of in water. You know, you break the
yeah.
surface area almost, right? So your words when you first speak, it's like there's it in your head, but there's always like a tension, right? So you just have to speak, and it sort of it changes everything. You just say hi. You just say hi, I'm Caroline, and yeah, I think your idea about asking a question is great, and that idea about telling a story, which is a bit unscripted, but you know, so that you're not worried about forgetting. You know, people get so
Right.
nervous. I'm
And
going
the
to
story's
forget.
always related. The story's always related to what I'm talking about. I'm not just like randomly telling a story about my neighbor, the squirrel in the yard. I'm actually legitimately telling something that is meaningful. And also, I just want to share, never apologize. The worst thing people can do is get up there and be like, "Ah, thank you so much. I'm sorry. I don't feel well today." And this
No,
is so this is
never,
going to be and
never. You just
and also like my slides, I try to put it up, and I have too many slides. I have way too many slides. So feel free to not pay attention to anything I'm saying or anything I'm doing. And if you want to check your phone, I know you want to check your phone, so please do that. And I really am sorry for taking up your time today. And I'm just like, why are you doing this? I want you to succeed. I came here to see you succeed. I
yeah.
didn't come here to see you flop on stage. That's the worst thing ever. So I think yeah, the public
I haven't
it's
seen
that's
any. Sorry, talking over you. I
super
haven't
fun.
seen any.
Yes. Anyway, look, Caroline Hill, wonderful conversation today. I'm really
Sorry, Kaplan.
we're both very lucky to be able to attend these events, and I'm sure we're both, grateful for that opportunity. And I actually I'll just say last thing, I'm attending Patrick Domenico's Knowledge Management and
Oh,
Innovation
awesome.
conference this week, and which he puts on with Josh Fireman. So it's a great event. It really draws the kind of the leaders in knowledge management at this event in New
Awesome.
York. I think our friend Bob Ambrosio will be there, and
Yeah.
a number of others. So excited about it. Excited to catch up with you about that event on our
Looking
next
forward to that. And
episode.
I've got Legal Geek this week, so catch up on that next time. There'll be
Awesome.
lots of stuff coming out of that. I would have thought it'd be
Okay,
interesting.
well, we'll both take notes and share our feedback. Super.
Oh,
Amazing. Great to see you. All
you
right.
too.
See ya.
Speak soon.
Bye.